So, hello, I'm Shawn Rosenmoss with the San Francisco Department of the Environment. Okay, so just a little background. I'm going to kind of present in the same way Daniel did. We have so much going on in the city of San Francisco. I don't want to just list, and we've got this program, and we've got that program, we've got this policy. But a little background on our climate work. So in 2004, we were one of the first cities to develop a climate action plan. And these were our goals that we set, right? 40% below 2025. In 2025, 40% below 1990 levels, right? In our greenhouse gas emissions. We recently decided we will be carbon neutral by 2050. So when we started talking to people about this, because we're all a bunch of climate and data geeks, we were so excited. When I tell you we're going to be 80% below 1990 levels by a certain year, I know you're going to get excited too. Well, in fact, we would start sharing these goals with people, and you could see them leaving their bodies, right? You could just see them going, I have no idea what this person is saying. What am I going to cook for dinner tonight? You know, so we're saying this kind of thing. And then we're signing MOUs, under 2 MOU. That tells no one anything. This is what they were hearing. Wah, 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 wah. So in 2013, we went back and sort of, our goals are the same, but we reformulated them in a way that hopefully people could understand. So 0 waste, 0 incineration, 0 toxics, 80% of all trips made in sustainable modes of transit, 100% renewable energy, and under that goal is getting off of all fossil fuels. So transportation, our EVs are included in that goal, right? Energy efficiency. So the 100% renewable energy goal is much bigger than just we're going to slap a bunch of PV on all of our buildings. So the first 3 are about doing less bad. We like to say the bottom one, so 0, 80, 100 roots. Our roots goal is about doing more good. Our roots goal is really, from a mathematical and scientific perspective, it is how are we sequestering carbon? How are we pulling carbon out of the atmosphere? I like to talk about the more metaphorical aspect of roots around getting back to our roots of community, getting back to our roots of taking care of each other. So a lot of the work that we're doing around biodiversity, urban forests, et cetera, that kind of falls under the roots goal of actually healing the planet after we have reduced our emissions. So how are we doing that? Again, big picture, some of the market sectors that we target, municipal, commercial, residential, right? So this 0, 80, 100 roots, we can frame that for any one of these markets. And our strategies, again, I never like to just list a bunch of programs, policies, programs, and partnerships. So we have a whole chapter in the city code, chapter 9, which is our environmental code. We just keep adding policies to that. We just keep adding ordinances to that. And again, looking at our target markets, how do municipal operations need to perform? Commercial, residential. We never want to have a policy without obviously helping people meet that policy. So for example, we have something called the existing commercial building ordinance, where if you're a building of over 10,000 square feet, you have to benchmark your energy use, and furthermore, you have to make that information public, right? So we have staff, we have technical support staff who work with building managers and operators and owners on working towards that policy. We also, and I'm sure all of you who do municipal work, we rely on a lot of partners. We have very formal partnerships, our Green Business Program, the Business Council on Climate Change. We have informal partnerships. We work with community-based organizations throughout San Francisco. We work with faith-based organizations, because these strategies are really important no matter what the policy or program is that we are doing, right? We're working with partners and stakeholders. And then what we do, so now we can get in a little bit of the nuts and bolts, but I do want to focus on our fleet, since you're talking about fleets. We do always want to keep in mind bikeable, walkable, getting people out of their cars, right? That's always the top thing. And so we're doing a lot of work to make our city safer for people walking and biking. and then 100% renewable energy. So when I look at that slide, I think, how hard can it be, right? We're going to electrify everything, and we're going to get that electricity from renewable sources. I have told my kids if they ever hear the words, how hard can that be, out of my mouth, they're going to slap me, right? Because whenever I say that, it's always going to be way harder than I thought. But ultimately, in a nutshell, how are we going to get to 100% renewable energy? We are going to electrify everything, and we're going to get that electricity from renewable sources. So all the way down to our cars, from the solar power to charging our automobiles. And again, what a lot of people have mentioned, it is systems thinking. It's how do all of these things operate together? The utilities, we have 2 power sources in the city of San Francisco. We have our Public Utilities Commission, which provides electricity to city buildings and the school district. We have PG&E that provides electricity to residential and commercial. Now we have community choice aggregation in the city of San Francisco. So our utilities are very complicated, and where we're getting electricity from, at the moment we're about 56% renewable electricity, hydroelectric, solar, wind. So this is the ultimate goal. In 2015, our then mayor called for an electric vehicle working group to sit down with all of the systems that were involved in this, the utilities, building inspection, Department of the Environment, the Public Utilities Commission, sit down and look at how we are going to become an EV city. So they spent about 1.5 years, 2 years, doing the preliminary planning and looking at what are the barriers, what are we dealing with here, and then ultimately we got $200,000 from the California Energy Commission. Thank you very much, to come up with our EV blueprint, to really look at what the first phase that the EV working group had come up with, and then create a plan around that. How are we going to address these barriers? Because like so many cities, we've got this existing building stock, buildings that have been built from the 1880s all the way through the 1950s. Nothing is uniform. It'd be great if we could, okay, here's your book, here's how you become an EV building, but every building is different. And so we have to do a lot of work on our existing building stock, but we do have policies on the books now. For new buildings in San Francisco, they have to be 20% EV ready, right? So how we're looking at how do we use our policies to drive the market, because when we can drive the market, it ultimately makes it easier for other fleet operators, right, to have vehicles ready, to have information on how do you develop these parallel systems of getting people to purchase the electric vehicles and the alt-fuel vehicles and the infrastructure that is needed in order to charge those and ensure that those are operating. So we're looking at the whole system when we're talking about electric vehicles in San Francisco. And again, we're looking at how do we influence the municipal fleet, how do we influence commercial businesses, and how do we influence the residential market for electric vehicles. So for our city fleet, we have a policy on the books that says our city fleet of sedans will all be electric vehicles by, is it 2025 or 2022? 2022, right? And so one of the things that we've looked at, a lot of people, oddly enough, are not like me. They don't care about the environment, but they do care about money. And so when we do this, we will be saving in fueling costs about $640,000 a year, right? Which is a good argument to go back to people who don't, they're not motivated by environment and climate change, but they are motivated by the bottom line. So that's what we're looking at, because we know EVs are much cheaper to own. As someone has mentioned, they're much cheaper to maintain, and the fuel costs are much cheaper. And for us, for our city fleet, because all of our city buildings are powered by hydroelectric electricity, right? Then they're zero carbon. They're zero carbon. It's not like someone is running a fossil fuel plant somewhere down the road, and that's what we're using to charge our vehicles. Our vehicles are going to be charged by hydroelectric power. The other thing that we're doing with our city fleet, at the moment, we have policies on the books that say if we have a diesel vehicle in San Francisco, it has to run on renewable diesel. That is a great interim measure. However, just like almost all environmental decisions, there is gray area, right? Paper or plastic, I don't know, let me look at the data. So, yes, it can be renewable diesel, but what we don't want to be doing is buying diesel that's made from palm oil that came from a plantation in Indonesia where someone stripped out a rainforest and put in a palm plantation so they could sell us this renewable diesel, right? So there's always some trade-offs. So ultimately, renewable diesel is great for the moment, but we do have goals on the books that we will have an all-electric bus fleet by 2025. So those are the things we're working on around electric vehicles. I know, there's a lot of resources out there. I just want to throw this out. Clean Cities has tons of resources around, getting your EV fleet. We in this Department of the Environment work with a lot of fleets in San Francisco on how to have a better fleet. I am hoping that someday we can rename this thing instead of the AltCar conference. Maybe we can just name it like the Good Car Conference, right? I don't like the idea that, these are alternative fuels and these are alternative cars. No, these are the cars, right? Those other cars, I don't know what we're going to call them, the bad cars. But yeah, we can't be thinking of this as alternative. So anyway, the technology is out there, right? Even as Daniel was talking about the this eco district that they're working on in Oakland, 95% of the technology is out there that we need in order to do all of these things, right? And we got to move it up. We got to adopt this stuff and make it work. And so I'm very excited that I get to work. I'm a civil servant, right? And I get to work for this mission-driven organization, this mission-driven city, in this mission-driven region, right? We meet with sustainability directors. We work with Daniel all the time. We're talking about how do we get off of natural gas. The sustainability director for the city of Baltimore, it's one person and she has an intern, and then I look at all the work that we get to do here and I look at the support that we get from the state and the California Energy Commission, and I just feel so lucky that we are leading the world in a lot of the stuff that we're doing. And thank you for joining us in this leadership, because it's really, really exciting. Thank you.
So we're running short on time. If we have a couple of burning questions, we can take those. I have one burning question in the back.
All electric questions only, please. No burning.
No burning.
No fossil fuels will be wasted in this question now. It's Q&A.
The size of your sedan fleet?
Yes.
What is it?
Is it 600 vehicles and we've got 400 more to switch over?
It's,
Suzanne does this.
yeah, it's something like 600 vehicles this affects.
And you'll have the infrastructure to charge those?
Yes.
You said?
Yes, we are working on the infrastructure to charge those. So in parallel. But we have, at the moment, we have about 600 public charging stations in San Francisco.
600.
Yes. Yes.
So I'll say there's one clarification on our all electric by 2022. We have certain leased facilities in San Francisco that we can't install infrastructure, and so those facilities will get plug-in hybrids, and they'll get plug-in hybrids versus battery electric, and there's a cap. I think it's 25% can be in the fleet for those leased facilities.
Okay, all right, makes sense.
And if there's no other burning questions, let's just flip to the next panel and keep moving. So thank you all so much.